Hey guys, it's Kim here, brothers and sisters. I've got something to tell you guys that I really have been kind of sitting on since Friday evening, because I really didn't know how to say this because it's really weird. But you know, it does speak in the scriptures how in the end of days that the Antichrist will seek to change times and laws. And, you know, I know we don't know for sure who he is yet or anything like that, and we may never know. I mean, as most of us pre-tribulation believers believe on these things, we know that he may be rising to power at this time, or that we may have already seen him, in the case that a lot of people think they know who he is. But I've never been led to know any of these things. I listen to my brothers and sisters, but I've never been shown anything about that. But let me just explain to you what I was shown, or what I feel like that the Lord wanted me to pay attention to. And I know it's going to be weird, guys, and it's going to be kind of strange, and but here we go. Just bear with me, okay, guys, and extend me some grace, as Barry Scarborough would say, because this is a little strange. I live in a house right now that I've just had for about a year. Before that, I was at a townhouse that was right up around the corner. But Alex, my husband, wanted to move closer to his parents. And as most of you all know, I take care of Mom. And so he wanted to be closer to his parents, too, because they're getting on up in age. So this house is about right across the street from them. Almost, you know, I could throw a stone and hit their house. But in essence, that's neither here nor there. But at this townhouse that I used to live in, I had a strange incident happen one day. And I think we've all had times that we think, you know, deja vu, like, hey, have I had this conversation before? Or, wow, I think I've been in this house before, and you know you really haven't. Or I've gone down a street before in a different city I've never been to and think it looks familiar. Just things like that. We've probably all had things like that happen to us at one time or another. And I've never thought much about it, really. But this was a little different. And I'll tell you what happened. I was in my kitchen one day pouring a cup of coffee. Just a random incident thing that you do, or, you know, in my case, a few times a day. But I was pouring a cup of coffee, and I walked out of my kitchen, through my dining room, stepped down into my living room, because it was like an older townhouse. It was built, I think, during the 80s, when they used to make a lot of sunken living rooms and stuff, and it always kind of freaked me out stepping down into that thing. But I stepped down into it, walked around my sectional, because really my furniture was too big for the townhouse, so I had to kind of squeeze in around it, set my coffee mug down on the table. So it was kind of an ordeal, y'all, if you can kind of picture the scene. Well, all of a sudden, as soon as I set that coffee mug down on the table, I'm back at the doorway of the kitchen, walking through the dining room again, stepping down into the living room and setting the coffee mug down again. And I kind of glanced over at Mom like, what just happened? But I didn't pay much attention to it. And guys, I'd never had anything like that happen before or since. So I just kind of blew it off. Well, until this summer, I'm here at this house, and I'd been here about 6 months at that point. And I'm pouring coffee in the kitchen one day, and I walk through the dining room and the kitchen to the doorway of the kitchen in this house, leads down the staircase to my office. And I went down my staircase into my office, set the coffee mug down. All of a sudden, I'm back up at the kitchen doorway again, walking down the stairs again, setting the coffee mug down again. And I'm like, hold it just a second. This is reminiscent of something that's already happened to me. Like back at the old townhouse, this very same thing happened. And maybe the Lord wants me to pay attention to this. Maybe this is what this means, is that I'm supposed to pay attention to this little time glitch or whatever it is. And, you know, I've heard people say before, like, CERN's trying to open up portals and mess with time along the space-time continuum and all of that. And when it says in the Bible, he will seek to change times and laws, is that not, in essence, messing with time, if you're going to be opening portals to be able to maybe either travel back or forward? And of course, let's face facts, guys. All of this is in control over God. I mean, he has control over this whole thing. So if it's being allowed to happen, then maybe I was allowed to see it, or a little bit of what that looks like. Because God's ultimately in control. When he says this gig's up and he comes after his church, that's that, people. But yet at the same time, could he be allowed to try to change the laws of physics and or the laws of what he thinks is being able to mess with prophecy and check, mess with time a little bit? Yeah, I mean, I guess the Lord could be allowing these things. It is written in the scripture. So maybe this is what it looks like. It's just that most of us don't ever notice it. So maybe it was kind of like an open vision, but it really happened, in real life. And I don't think if I'd had the coffee mug in my hand, been going through the same process, even if it was at a different location, because see, I would have thought maybe, if I ever even thought on it at all, I would have thought, well, maybe that was just the house that I lived in. That was just a goofy house. Maybe there was some kind of time portal or something, I mean, even if I were inclined to think such, which I probably would not be, to be quite honest with you. I'm a little bit more logical than that. And of course, being Christians, we're like chapter, verse, I mean, it's just the kind of person I am. So you really have to get my attention, for something like this, which I feel like that it was. Well, fast forward to Friday night. Here we go. I'm cooking a roast, and it's a fairly thick roast, guys. It's a big one, okay? I got it at the store, and it was on sale, and so I put it in the oven about 5 o'clock. And at 6:41, about an hour and 45 minutes later, I checked it, with a fork just to see if it's fork tender, because us Southern girls like it that way, or most of us do. And our pot roasts have to be savory, But anyway, I was checking it, and I looked at the clock on the stove, and it said 6:41. And so I pulled out the roast, flipped back the tinfoil, checked it. It wasn't quite fork tender yet, because it was a bigger one than what I usually get, because I was going to make barbecue the next day, and then eat it that night and then make barbecue. Well, anyway, it wasn't fork tender yet. It needed about another 45 minutes to an hour. So I slammed it back in the oven, looked at the clock again. It was still 6:41. And Mom was playing solitaire at the table in the kitchen. I said, hey, Mom, I said, this kidney stone's really bothering me. And for those of you who don't know, I've been dealing with that for 4 or 5 days, trying to pass a kidney stone, which I think finally I did. And so praise God, and thank y'all for your prayers that knew about that. I try not to complain too much about it, but this one really got me. But in either case, I walked downstairs to my office, and I watched several videos, and I probably exchanged 30 emails and answered my emails and things like that. And I was down there, what I thought was a good hour. And I asked my husband, I had my phone in my pocket, because I was picking up some coffee mugs and stuff downstairs. Since I knew I was going back up to the kitchen, I figured, well, I'll just get together some dishes. And I'm like, Allie, what time is it? And he said, it's 6:53. I said, no, it ain't either. I said, buddy, listen, I've been down here longer than 10 minutes. I've watched several videos. I've been, on my email and stuff. I know I've been down here about an hour. And he goes, Kim, it's 6:53. So here I am grabbing my phone out of my back pocket, and I'm looking at it, and it says 6:54, and I'm like, goodness. And he goes, Kim, you probably just looked at it the wrong way. He goes, it was probably 5:41 when you took the roast out of the oven and checked it. I said, no, it wasn't, Alex. I said, it was 6:41. I said, I'm kind of weird about time, and you know that I am. I said, so therefore I know that I've been down here a good hour. Sure enough, I run upstairs, I check the roast, it's perfectly done. So it has been in there about another 45 minutes to an hour. Okay. But sure enough, the clock on the stove at this point says, like, I don't know, 6:55 or something like that. And I'm just like, hold it, I lost an hour in time. And I made a plate for Alex, and I brought it down because he was working in the office on our new laptop trying to get it going. And he said, Kim, he goes, we are supposed to run the clocks back this weekend, aren't we? And I said, yeah. I said, but I didn't do that, Alex. I didn't run the clock back. And so, guys, I don't know how to explain this any other way. But I tell you this, that if I were to be so inclined or had the power enough to mess with space and time or the laws of physics, either one, and mess with times and laws. And did y'all hear that big explosion? What in the world was that? Y'all, days are getting stranger. And this report, I know, is strange, but just bear with me. If I were so inclined or had the power, like I said, to mess with space and time and all that other kind of stuff, and was allowed that through God, and I guess I were, had nefarious plans for such as to try to run back time or buy myself time or whatever, I'd probably do it on a weekend where people were going to be running the clocks back anyway. Because you know how like half the people never seem to notice it at your office. There's like, ah, the time thing doesn't bother me. And then the other half of people are just like going around groggy going, I hate this time thing. You know, well, you know, an hour, 2 hours, me, right? So, anyway, I've been sitting on this because I didn't know what to say about it, right? Because I know it's far-fetched, guys. I know it's, but what is that supposed to look like? You know, maybe the Lord is showing us a little glimpse of what could happen or how it's supposed to happen when we're gone. You know, when the tribulation starts. Let's face it, if you had the power to loop a little time here and a little time there, you might be able to either recreate what happened during that hour to change the outcome of the future, or basically you would be doing it so that you could buy yourself time in general. Now we know that the Lord says that he will shorten those days for the sake of the elect, right? So that's something that's going to be done by God. But also, like I said, I keep going back to the prophecy of that he will seek to change times and laws, speaking of the Antichrist, and so this very well could be the case. So I looked up Jewish gematria for 641, and the first thing that popped up that I saw was Appolyon, and I thought, indeed. So I thought that was a confirmation too. And I tried to get a hold of Sister Darla, but I never could. You know, we don't talk. I mean, I talked to her on her comments because I noticed that the last few videos she's done, she has talked quite a bit about time. And I did get a word from the Lord that I reported yesterday, which was called Convergence. And it's a video that I did. So I think that that may have something to do with it as well. But I really could use your all's help on trying to figure this out. But today, just today, Sister Amanda Christian had texted me, and she had said, hey Kim, I had this dream about blackjack, and she said, and the devil was involved in it, and I saw 2 cards and a hand slapping down on it. Well, from what I know about blackjack, if you got 2 cards and you've got your hand down on it, usually it means the person's getting ready to double down. And for those of you who know what that means, and if not, I guess you can Google it and educate yourself real quick if you want to know. When you double down, you change the odds of the table for the other players. Because let's just say I'm sitting at the head position, I got 4 people down row from me, and I ask for another card, I double down. Whether I get a face card or whether I get a number card, that changes the probability factors that they're going to get the card that they want, because I've taken it from that second person, third person, and so on and so forth. And for those of us who are kind of math people, the probabilities will change, the odds change at that point. And but the odd changed for you too, because it's almost like you're playing 2 hands instead of 1. And I don't know everything about everything, guys, as far as this stuff goes. This is all new to me, and I know it's a rather strange report, and we're supposed to keep focused on Jesus. But I have to say that this is something I feel like I was shown from the Lord. I certainly don't think that I'm trying to be deceived from the wrong side, because I don't think that the devil wants us to know what he's up to or his sneaky little plans that might be going on behind the scenes. And I don't think that he wants to wake anybody up to keep them focused that, hey, this weird stuff is happening because the Lord's coming back soon. Because all of this is really a fulfillment of prophecy, if that be the case. And I've never really thought of what that would look like, but what if it did look like this? And what if we just didn't notice? But through this, we were given an opportunity to really see what that may look like in looping time. Because in all cases, either with the coffee mug, it being a 30-second rollback in time, or with the roast on Friday night, either way, it's rolling time back in my case. And I thought, well, let me go to the Bible and see if there was any time that the clock was ever run back. But it was for a righteous king. It was for Hezekiah. And Isaiah was telling him a prophecy that he would be able to, this was after he had run off the king of Assyria, I think it was, and turned him away. And he was killed by his own sword. The king of Assyria was, by his own children, his own sons. I got helicopters going over like crazy, guys. That's a couple of them, guys. That's not medical, that's Army too. Goodness, y'all. Anyway, well, that was weird. I don't see a lot of Army helicopters go over. We have the Bluegrass Army Depot pretty close to where I live. That's in Richmond, Kentucky, is where that is, and I'm in Lexington. So maybe that's what it was, guys, is that they're, you know, going there for whatever reason. But in either case, all of this, take it to the Lord in prayer and see what you all